I'll be honest, I do see the difference. The only difference for me as a person who's running a factory, needs paperwork done, this, that, and the other. Being an exporter those days, the drawbacks were very important. I mean, I used to spend half my time chasing a file to be moved so that I could get the drawback. It wasn't even, one had to do a lot in between to get that money. So I don't know what came back was worth it or not. So those sort of things are gone now because everything is online. It's literally 5-minute job to get, register your taxes, and it's regulated, so you have to, which is I think great because we all need to pay taxes.
And growing up in Calcutta, most
Yes.
people are political beings.
Yes.
The conversation is around
Bengalis
politics.
and politics.
Yeah.
This whole program can be taken up with that. But I feel very strongly about these things because we are a democracy. It's the largest democracy in the world. I believe if you have a good product, the time of a brand without a product is gone. There were designers who were brands with not such a great product, maybe.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Statesman Talk with me, Deepti J. Varma. Today we are being joined by Kalyani Saha Chawla, who's a serial entrepreneur and has been in the fashion, luxury and lifestyle space for almost 3 decades. Hi Kalyani, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
As I just said, that you've been in this space for almost 3 decades, and so starting back to where your journey started, I think the only box that men in society felt comfortable to put women in who were in this space was call them a socialite. Do you remember that time? Do you remember the biases that you fought? Because you've been a professional throughout.
Pastry didn't exist till much later, but I was written about. I'm from Calcutta. So when you got written about in Calcutta in the papers or in a magazine or mentioned somewhere, there was a lot of respect attached to it.
Okay.
Because firstly, that word socialite didn't exist at that time.
Okay, so this is the pre-socialite.
The
Socialite.
pre-page 3
Yeah.
era. And so I was actually a part of, I've been written about, since I've been a serial entrepreneur, apart from the fact that my first job was with Oberoi Hotels, which actually taught me, Mr. Oberoi himself, about that God really is in the details and what luxury is really about, what the luxury clientele expects, etc., etc. And there was a learning at every stage of my life. Talking about this whole tag that we are tagged, even when I ran one of the largest couture houses in India, later
Dior.
I brought, yes, and started the whole exodus of international brands coming into India. Everyone just thought I was running around in Dior frocks and that's all I did. Every industry, the fashion industry obviously included, it's a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
But the glamour world, whether you talk about the movies, where you talk about fashion, everything is all about the glamour.
But it takes away the seriousness of what the
It
hard
just
work.
does. It just takes away, everything. A person who's in the fashion world is perceived not as seriously
Frivolous.
as frivolous, flaky, or it's almost not even a job, vis-a-vis someone who says I'm an astronaut and working for NASA. It's just actually it's all about perception. End of the day, everything today in our life is about perception and how people perceive you. And we get, I'm sure, deeper into that conversation in a bit. But especially for women, people, I've been judged all my life. Yeah.
So the 90s fashion scene, coming back to that, do you think it had its own magic, its own madness that can never be replicated? You were at the onset of, when the Indian fashion scene was booming or just starting. What do you remember of that time?
Fashion it's a cycle. Everything comes back.
Do you think it had more personality back then?
Yes, I mean, for sure, it was very distinctive. 80s and 90s, I mean, 80s for me was bigger, but yes, 80s, 90s, and later part of 90s got a bit confusing because, it was a mishmash of a lot of things. But you look at the designers and some of the best collections. I mean, I joined Dior when there was John Galliano. I mean, for me, he's just the god of design. When I
How many
was
years did you work with Dior?
13 years.
Wow.
Yeah, long time. And I think for me, I think 80s was very distinct. The power shoulders and the suits, and especially for women, it was all about power dressing. But then you see the 60s before that, and I think that's where modern fashion began, with the flower child, etc. But then what comes back? The Gatsby era, the 40s, the 20s, they're very distinctive fashion eras. But if you look at fashion today, it is a bit of a mix of everything that we've seen before. The shoulder pad still exists, the cinched waist still exists.
But does that atmosphere exist? That same talent, whether it's photographers or designers at that time, it was a slightly smaller, closer group. You think it's become much more professional and the scale has changed. But do you think that had its own magic when there were a few of you just starting out?
When I started off Dior, which was in 2006, it was the onset of this exodus of international brands coming into India. Emporio was the first luxury mall in India. And I remember sitting with Pia Singh, whose baby it was, and we changed the whole geography of the ground floor because, Dior had to be here. It's all about location. And it was such an exciting time, and also everyone was like looking at India as this emerging market, which is yet to emerge, but that's another story. But there was a lot of promise and there was a lot of hope at that particular time when everyone looked into India. And we've gone through also internationally, whether it was a pandemic, whether it was a slump in economy throughout the world, at certain stages. So, we've all gone through a major upheaval. But I think now, after all these years, India's shining again. And I feel that there is a lot of interest that has happened in the luxury world. Every brand who didn't exist or wouldn't think of being in India is now looking at India. I mean, there are brands which are coming in, they're opening 3 stores within the span of the next 6 months. They're 2 in 3 different cities. So it's no one's taking baby steps when it comes to India anymore, where there's no trepidation because they're just leaping into this market. And no matter what, if you see worldwide, Indians are big spenders.
Yeah.
And I think we have also come onto the global arena with a lot of...
Why do you think that is? Do you think we've always had a history of being patrons of art and just a general culture of, we enjoy fashion and luxury? I mean,
traditionally, honestly, it was the Maharajas, whether it was Cartier jewels, whether, the Kapurthala family or all the Maharajas with their Rolls Royce and their hilarious stories about what they did mutilating certain things because they were not being sold, say, a Rolls Royce. But look at the Maharaja of, all the states, actually, not to mention anyone in particular, but the Maharaja of Indore. I mean, he loved Art Deco. So they were so international. But now today, I think, and they were great patrons, whether it was jewelry, whether it was the art, all the Maharanis who wore chiffon, they were all French chiffons, so it wasn't Indian made, which is actually quite funny because, it's ironical because we are the land of saris and like weaves and etc. So, we've been great patrons, traditionally so. But because of social media today and the kind of, there was never a Met Gala for you to know that there's a Sudha Reddy.
That's what I was going to ask. You were doing marketing for Dior at that time. How difficult was it to do what you were doing? before the social media era? What were your tools at that time?
Our tools were only publications, and people read. Nobody reads anymore. You're just flicking through your phone.
Yeah.
The attention span has become less and less and less and lesser. And it's all almost pictorial. It's a comic book situation now. No one's reading. So, there was all this again with the brands coming in, came in all the publications, whether it was Hearst or Condé Nast, etc. We only had Femina. It was the only magazine that we had in India. And then I think Elle came in later, but that was it. But nobody really looked at a fashion magazine seriously. People who were interested obviously bought. But there was only Bollywood and the filmy magazines. So it's interesting because Bollywood never was in the forefront being looked at as
Fashion.
fashion. None of them were considered fashionable. So when I actually started working with Dior, I realized because nobody has the kind of reach that Bollywood does. It's not only domestic, but on an international basis. So I think I can kind of take claim to the fact that I changed them from the sari to the gown on the red carpet, especially on the international red carpets, and worked with them for covers of magazines. It was the death of supermodels, for sure, models that we had. And because it was an exciting time. But I think that whole trajectory of the Bollywood actress, you played around with the top 5 because, again, it's all about positioning and associations, which was actually boring after a while because nothing else sold. So you don't put a Bollywood actress on the cover, the magazine doesn't sell. So even a Vogue or a Harper's Bazaar
Everybody
does
went the
not
same
have the power to change that. Isn't that absolutely ridiculous? But it is. It is what
And
it
then
is.
after Dior, did you start a silver brand then? No.
So I went to the e-commerce.
You did the e-commerce.
I had the whole idea of this was to bring in high street,
Like an ASOS kind of model.
Yes, ASOS kind of model, but from all the fashion capitals. So I was shopping in London, in Milan, in New York, etc. So that was the whole idea. And I designed, which of course I didn't put my name on it, a whole line. That I designed myself. Got it made in a local factory in Delhi. It was great fun, but I had very strong investors, and basically when it's not your money, you have very little say after a while.
And the
So I sold
answerability is
it.
more,
I sold it, yeah. And then I started Razon Silverware.
How's that been like? Has it been difficult launching your own brand even after all those years of experience?
I believe if you have a good product, the time of a brand without a product is gone. There were designers who were brands with not such a great product, maybe. And those days are gone today.
Okay.
Today, I just feel that people definitely are aware of the fact that it's a brand, but the fact that I have managed to capture a certain segment of the market in such a short time, because it's just a 6.5-year-old company, is because of what I have to offer. My design aesthetics, the quality, and price point. I think these are the three things that bring in the magic for every consumer.
And has it been difficult through the pandemic?
I opened my flagship store in March 2020. So it was the worst time ever. But you know what? Today I can proudly say I'm a debt-free company and I managed to survive, and it pays the bills. So
how's it been doing business in India today? Like, with the current regime, do you think it's startup friendly? Do you think it's entrepreneur friendly, the environment?
I used to export fashion accessories, and that kind of overlapped with Dior for 4 years. The Dior showroom used to be in my factory. Those that many years ago, and then I gave that up. So I ran a factory before, not during the current political scenario, but the previous one.
Have you seen any
Things
difference in the way you're operating?
I'll be honest, I do see the difference. The only difference for me as a person who's running a factory, needs paperwork done, this, that, and the other. Being an exporter those days, the drawbacks were very important. I mean, I used to spend half my time chasing a file to be moved so that I could get the drawback. It wasn't even, I mean, one had to do a lot in between to get that money. So I don't know what came back was worth it or not. So those sort of things are gone now because everything is online. It's literally 5-minute job to get, register your taxes, and it's regulated. So you have to, which is, I think, great because we all need to pay taxes. I don't believe in a lot of things that are happening today because my grandfather was a freedom fighter. And
And growing up in Calcutta, most
yes.
people are political beings.
Yes.
The conversation is around
Bengalis
politics.
and politics.
Yeah.
This whole program can be taken up with that. But I feel very strongly about these things because we are a democracy. It's the largest democracy in the world. It's a sad fact that we don't even have an opposition anymore. And it's the weakest link. As far as we as Indians are concerned, it's a scary situation. Not for anything else, but
You don't think this opposition is doing this, like the India bloc together, they can maybe throw an upset?
It's a whole different conversation. Honestly, I think they've lost all the good people for their internal reasons, which I don't want to comment upon right now because it is a very, very deep conversation. But the fact is that they've lost all the good guys. Now, see, when a lot of my friends initially asked me, saying, how can you just defect like this? You all were so strong in what you believed, and, at least we had an opposition. Now, see, this is a profession.
Yeah.
Being in politics, and you've given your time and effort, and no matter who they are and what they are doing, and legendary fathers, etc., today they've taken up politics as a job. Now, if you're in tech or whatever, if you're looking for a job, where would you go to? Obviously, Google. It's just one of those situations. Where do you go if you go to take
Wherever
this
you see
up?
the most avenues and most
The most
growth,
avenues,
most
the
growth.
opportunity, the growth. So today, everyone's like, okay, let's try and make a difference in a scenario where we are possibly respected, part of the system, etc. And this is the biggest issue right now, that we don't have an opposition, so which has its own discomfort almost, for all of us Indians, because anything can happen. It's this whole dictatorial kind of situation, which is not good. But at the same time, I know there's progress. I know Mr. Modi has put India on the map.
As somebody who travels abroad a lot, especially,
He
you attend
has
art
become
events.
He's become an international figure.
Yeah.
I mean, the last time it was Rajiv Gandhi, who everyone loved. And I mean, he was so articulate. He was such a great orator, such a great personality, built modern India, actually, and so progressive, that was so tragic. But honestly, I think, of course, Mr. Modi has a very different way of operating. But yeah, we are back
Abroad,
on
do
the
you
map.
think it matters now? Your voice matters more, like as an Indian?
India's shining, and I think he has a lot to do with it. I mean, I am neither here nor there, sitting on a fence right now, but as an Indian citizen and a person who runs a factory today and has work and has to get things done, and there are ups and downs, but as an Indian, I believe in democracy. I believe there may be one God that we all believe in, but I have to choose which God I want to worship.
Yeah.
There is only one God, but it's my faith. If there's no faith and if there's no belief, you can't force me to eat something that I don't, or rather give up something I love eating.
Yeah.
Or you can't, that's no one's right. What I wear, what I eat, and who I pray to. I mean, these are basic human rights. So it should be done. This is the only thing that
That you have a
I
issue with.
have on me and a lot
Yeah.
of other people. People are scared to even make these statements. I'm sitting here with you making
Yeah.
this statement. It's scary. I mean, I don't want to get into trouble, but
Yeah.
I just.
Do you know
but
of anyone who got into trouble because of their posts?
I mean,
or-
come on. We know of plenty of
Yeah.
those, which is not nice. It should be like there is no free press. There is no press. There is no one has an opinion anymore. Gosh, I really am going to disappear from the face of the earth very soon. Yeah.
Okay, coming back to your business, how difficult has it been being a single woman in any of these spaces and navigating the business aspect, the social aspect, unwarranted attention, the trolls online? Take us through that.
I think being a single woman itself is tough. But I also feel that, and I've been single for so long, I also feel that it really depends on you and how you portray yourself. And there was a time I didn't care, but as you grow older, you definitely get wiser, and there is a certain norm to our society. You don't have to be a rebel. You don't have to be, kind of, and I'm very conscious of that now with a growing daughter. She's in her mid-20s now. So, you feel as a parent, because that's one thing that I am super, super conscious of, the way.
Conscious of introducing a man to her?
No, I don't. Oh, she's desperate for me to be involved with somebody. She's at that age. She just wants me to be happy, obviously. And it's my daughter. Daughters always feel about these things strongly. No, I just feel being a single woman itself is tough, especially living in a space like we do, in Delhi. There is a lot of unwanted attention sometimes. But Dipti, you'll be surprised. I sometimes feel I have horns in my head because I
Do you think
don't.
that's a bong in you?
I think men are just intimidated.
Yeah.
And I'm
By
like,
intelligent
no,
women, you think?
but
Or
I am
independent?
really friendly.
Yeah.
But
Do you think independence
I think
intimidates them?
Indian men just can't handle women with any sort of opinion. And apart from the fact that a man can offer me absolutely nothing that I could want because I've earned it and I have it, apart from emotional
Yeah.
strength. And sometimes that is the only thing that most men can't give. So, yeah.
Having said that, do you miss having a man? Is it important to have a man in your life?
Of course. It is important emotionally. And do I miss having a companion? 100% I do. I'm not one of those women who saying, oh my God, no, I'm fine. And I'm so happy being single. I'm happy being independent. I'm not necessarily happy being single. My daughter lives in London. I don't think she's ever going to come back, given a choice. And no, I don't think she will. And, as you grow older, again, you do need companionship. My family's in Calcutta. I live here. There's no semblance of family in Delhi. So all this put together, sure, of course. I mean, it's not something that I'm going to be showing any bravado towards because I do miss having a companion, 100%. Just someone to ask, how was your day? Yeah.
And very exciting times for you. You've shot for this series on Netflix, Bollywood Vibes.
Yeah.
Now it's called something else.
Fabulous Lives versus Bollywood.
Yeah. How was that experience?
I can't really talk about it too much. It's going to release in
When is it?
October, I
October.
think.
Oh, so
yeah,
still some
around
time.
end October, November, end of the year. But it's been announced, so everyone knows, of course, now.
It's quite a surprise to some of us who didn't know about it also.
Yes,
Yeah.
I
a
know
lot of
it's
your friends
brought
wouldn't have
in-
known.
Yes, but it has a reach which is global. I joke about it. Oh my God, I'm going to leave the country when this is coming out and hide for a bit. It's shown in 190 countries, I think, all over the world. So nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. I am super fortunate to have been asked. I am really grateful for having been given this opportunity.
What part are you guys playing in it?
So there's a cast of 7 of us. So
Yeah.
there's Delhi, Bombay, basically. So it's Fabulous Lives versus Bollywood Wives. And they've already had 2 seasons, so they are seasoned. And I was there actually in season 2, a very teeny
Yeah,
weeny
you
bit.
were for a
Yeah,
bit.
blink and miss. But I just want to tell you, I've been stopped in London in the airport and on the street saying, weren't you in Bollywood Wives? Sometimes people, young girls especially come up to
Yeah.
me saying, we follow you. And even though I don't have 1 million followers, but,
Yeah.
it's really
On
nice to
social
see
media.
you, etc. on social media. And I'm like, oh, okay, I was just there, blink and miss. But that is the reach of Netflix today.
And is it
it's
easy
unbelievable.
being filmed for a reality series, so to speak?
I didn't realize the
opening your life,
magnanimity
yeah.
of what I was getting into. When I was asked, I was very excited, and I used to joke with Karan saying, I want to just play maybe Shah Rukh's mother because in Hindi movies, mothers get to hug their sons a lot. And he says, shut up. And then when he called me to say that you want to do this, we'd love to have you, I was so excited. I've been very adventurous with my life in general. And I just thought about it and I'm like, if not now, then when? I didn't realize what I was getting into because I was in the middle of my Diwali collection and it's a peak season for me. So I remember the first, I think, 2 shots, I just did it without even thinking. Or the third. And then suddenly, I think the third shoot, I just realized what I'd gotten myself into. That this is going into the archives forever.
Yeah, for
And
posterity,
it's
yeah.
out there for
Yeah.
posterity, for anyone to see at any given point. It's on Netflix, it's insane. And suddenly I was like, oh my God. Yeah, but I think I'm super lucky to be part of this.
Also talking about how ageism has always been a part of a woman's existence,
Yes.
especially more so in the lifestyle, luxury, fashion space.
Yeah.
But such an opportunity coming to you at this age.
Yes.
So you think it's changing, times are changing, or you think it still exists?
I think you're as good as
Yeah.
what you do today, and
You're relevant.
if as long as you're relevant. I've been in the press for 3 decades now. I mean, why do people still find me interesting? Is because I do interesting things, and you have. Of course, I bring my personality on as well, but no, I just feel that it's always been written about. I've been always written about my work, and I've done so many things, since I was in Calcutta, I opened up the first lifestyle store in Calcutta, which was called Kalyani, very original, but I picked up things from all over the country, and whether it was fashion, whether it was art, etc. I've always done something, so I think I am relevant still, and I'm always trying to make a difference in my own little way in whatever I do. And I think, yes, again, I think I'm very fortunate that people think I'm relevant enough, that this is a big deal, and I just think it is absolutely amazing that at my age and stage that I was asked, and you're not always looking at someone younger to do something or take on a role or portray someone at a certain age. Me in my 50s now, I just feel the whole narrative is changing. The whole narrative about women today are changing, whether it's the way you look to this doing away with body shaming, etc. But having said that, social media
It's cruel.
nasty. It is nasty. I stopped reading comments now, I read my comments on my own page. I'll tell you, when Netflix was announced, somebody wrote to me saying, you look so old. They think it's an abuse to call you old. I'm like, yeah, I'm probably your mom's age. Must be some young little thing somewhere.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm meant to grow old.
Yeah.
I
It's the
I
most
think
natural process
it's the
in the
most
world.
natural process. So they think they're
And
being
the most democratic.
nasty.
It'll happen to everyone.
Everybody, and
Yeah.
they think they're being nasty and trying to be hurtful but calling you old. I take pride in the way I look at my age, and
Yeah.
that's just the way it is. I'm not, it's just I feel this whole ageism is has become horrible, because especially for young people, they are meant to look a certain way almost, and these even cosmetic companies, I
Yeah.
really do blame them. How can you have a 20-odd-year-old model doing advertising an
For anti-aging.
anti-aging cream? I mean, honestly.
Your daughter Tahira, do you think when you interact with her and her friends, do you think that generation of women have had it are having it easier now because of the women before them, or you think they have their own struggles?
Social media is a massive struggle for
Massive
young
struggle.
people now. The kind of mental health problems that children do today is absolutely staggeringly horrible, because the pressure of just going to college.
Yeah.
You're going to college, but there's a certain way you have to look. You have to keep shopping. You may not have the means to shop for so many different things. You're competing constantly with your classmates or whatever. It just all stems from there. The pressure is not just education and how
Yeah.
well you do. It's all about that. It's
every
all
day.
about the whole package today. Parents put so much pressure, especially girls, but it's not just girls, it's also the boys, go through equal amount of, but mental health, which I have struggled with for many, many years,
Have you gone through therapy?
I did. I did go for therapy, and I didn't realize, because we all think,
We're so strong and we're
we are so
okay.
strong, we know everything, I've
Yeah.
gone through life, I don't need anybody to tell me what to
Yeah.
do. But the perspective that you get, and that's why, I mean, you become a psychologist or a therapist or whatever. It's an education, and just like becoming a doctor and an engineer, so they're coming from a space of facts and
Yeah.
about, it's an education,
Yeah.
right? So and they're
So they know
implying it, or
something
they
which obviously we
know
don't
which
know, or
we
or the
don't
tools we
know.
don't
Yeah,
have.
why do you go to a doctor, or why do you get a
Yeah.
plumber to fix your plumbing? I mean, they
Yeah.
have the expertise that you clearly don't. So it's just one taboo to talk about mental health, because everyone thinks you need to be crazy to go to a therapist. No, you don't need to be crazy. You need to go to talk to someone who has a totally unbiased opinion,
Of your
where
life.
you can't talk about it to your parents, maybe your
Partner.
best friend or your partner, and you get a different perspective altogether. And it all stems from within. The problem is always within us. It's never the third person or the person who may have hurt you or who may have done something to you. It's always stemming from childhood,
Yeah.
majorly from childhood, your upbringing,
And
and
things
how
you might have buried deep under your
many
layers of
layers.
memory. Yeah.
And so I went and I had this amazing therapist, and after I think the third session, because I had to go to her for an hour, we used to sit for 3 hours. Next thing I know, she's left the country. This is what I do to therapists. They just
Drive
leave
them
the
away.
country, probably needing therapy herself by the end of it. No, but I think it's a very important issue, and we need to give it the credence that it clearly hasn't got as yet, especially in India, because educated people will often say, what do you mean? I don't need a therapist. What do you mean?
Yeah.
Why are you suggesting? Why did you
There's
say
nothing wrong
that?
with me.
I'm like, I think you need to go talk to somebody, because clearly
I'm going through something. Yeah.
you're going through something and you need help to put a perspective on it. So I think this is something which we need to look and give more credence to, and look at more and talk about it more. I mean, I've been through it, so I know how important it is. I was on the brink
Of a breakdown.
of a breakdown, and I probably had breakdowns medically, which I know I did. You don't know you've had it, you know.
Till you go to somebody and
They go
look
to
at,
somebody and
yeah.
that person tells you that, do you know what you went through? Do you know what this is? And do you know this comes from very deep trauma? Do you know the, and yeah, she put a perspective on the whole situation. So I think it's, it needs to be spoken about much more often. Yeah.
Okay, my last question to you is, you are seen constantly entertaining. You're seen constantly reinventing yourself. You're doing something like it's like every day you're, hustling. Do you think that's a thing that women have to do a bit extra? Like considering you are materially sound now, you've reached a certain point in your career with your brand. Do you think men can take it easier in that way? There's more pressure on women to perform every day?
I just say
Or is it a
that
personal thing to you?
I'm actually a man in a woman's body. So that should answer your question.
Yeah.
Men don't have it easy at all. I mean, they are supposedly the breadwinner. They have to, go out there, work, and look after a family. And no, of course not. There's no comparison. But also today, if we women want equal rights, if we women say we are we should be given the same paycheck as a man doing the same job, for example. This is one of the main things was that way back in the Oberoi hotels. I remember I used to do this, guys. All his work, almost half his work, and mine, and whatever. But
Priority.
he was getting paid more
Paid
than
more,
me.
yeah.
And I brought this up a couple of times, but I was 21 years old. I mean, there's that much, I was
Say you can have. Yeah.
I was a very different human being. Today, I'll make sure it happens, But I was
Do you hire more
completely
women?
different.
Yeah.
I try and hire, I mean, in my job today, it's difficult because it's the craft, it's a certain craft which men do. But wherever a woman can fit in, like my accounts is all women, my designers are all women. So wherever I can get
Yeah.
them in, of course I get them in to do the work. But mine is, hardcore factory girl. But
Okay, actually, yeah, one more question I have for you. If there's one piece of advice you can give Tahira, your daughter, for the next 10 years, what would it be?
next 10 years of her
Of
life.
her life, yeah.
I would give this advice to every woman, every girl. Be financially independent. This is our superpower. I feel invincible today. I could bring up my daughter on my own without any financial help from my ex-husband. Sent her to the best school, most expensive school in the world, because of which I'm broke. No, I'm not.
Yeah.
I think it's very important for a woman. This is our superpower, to be financially independent, where you don't ever have to bow down or feel. You know how many women suffer in bad marriages because where they're going to go with a child or two, and who's going to look after their, just the basics.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be, in crores. I'm just talking about the basics of an ordinary person going through so much, but they don't have the strength. They don't have, and then of course there's a social taboo. So if you're financially independent, I think
You have more choice.
you have more
overall.
choices. And also, a financially independent woman has a very different outlook towards life. Today, you understand that I don't need to take something which I don't want to, which is against my grain, or you don't need to tolerate
Put up with anything.
or put up with something you don't want to be, tolerating, or don't want the rest of your life to look like this miserable mess, or your children to go through it. But you can do it because you have the means. And I think that's what I tell Tyra. I said, no matter what you do, you have to make sure that you're financially independent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Kalyani. Thank you for talking to us today.
It's been fun. Thank you.
If you liked the episode, do not forget to share it, and also like, share, and subscribe to all our socials. They are listed below. And thank you for watching.